But let's break down these teams a little bit more, as well as, of course, these players on the side of Team Taiwan. This is Jian-ting Liu, who is a superstar player in his own right. Take a look at all those national top cuts that this player has been able to have. And also on this team, I feel like there are some familiar faces, but also maybe in ways that we wouldn't expect them to normally be on a team together.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the jumping back to a lot more Ogerpon we're seeing in these last few matches instead of the Urshifu is a really interesting choice. I think it's cool to see players jumping back to Pokemon that are really powerful in their own right, but maybe not at the forefront of the metagame, so their opponent isn't perfectly prepared for the things that they're bringing. So I think that's really cool. I like the incorporation of Goldengo. I think there's just so much pressure whenever you have Goldengo, especially with that Amoonguss for redirection. A lot of just sort of standard tools, but with just so much potential for like fairy water offense for that Goldengo and this wonderful sort of switching defensive core of that Iron Hands, Amoonguss, and Landorus. There's a lot of really nice options from John Ting's team.
Definitely super balanced. And you talk about the redirection on the Amoonguss, but just another thing I want to point out from the Ogerpon is this is a little bit of a difference than what we saw in our very first match, where we have Follow Me on this instead of a Swords Dance. So another really great way to try to redirect any attacks that might be coming in the direction of something like the Fluttermane or that Golden Go. Especially knowing that there's no Tornadus on this team. That has been a very classic partner, I feel like, for something like that Golden Go to help get that speed on the board and just allow that Golden Go to take advantage of something like that Metal Coat and make it rain combo.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent thing to shout out is that like the one thing that seems like it's missing on this team is the speed control. And I'm really curious to see how this team plays without that because you have other options like double redirection, the fake out from Iron Hands. You even have like a focus sash on Fluttermane, which means it can survive more. It can go for a Perish Song if you get down to a 2v2
Yeah.
situation. There's a lot of neat little nuances to this team that I'm excited to see unfold in this match.
And it's going to become even more complicated as we take a look at the other side. Anthony Liuzzo is actually going to be playing something that we've seen very recently at the Latin America International Championships, and that's the Ndidi and the Regieleki. Hayden, I feel like this team has just created so many waves over the last few weeks.
Absolutely. This is I think my favorite team I've seen in like several years. It's just so many interesting synergies. The like one of these teams we're looking at has no speed control. This team has all the speed control. It has the Regieleki and the Tornadus, just like so much potential for offense. We see the Ogerpon on this side has Swords Dance instead of Follow Me, going for much more of that offensive bent. And then it is a Focus Sash Fluttermane again, but no Perish Song or anything. So a lot of just like potential to do a ridiculous amount of damage from this side of the field.
Yeah, and that Chiyu is going to throw a wrench onto honestly both sides when you look at how much special attack damage could be coming out from either direction. So let's not wait any further to get into this very first game of this second match of the World Cup Top 16. We are going to end up seeing the Regieleki and the Chiyu lead off right away versus this Iron Hands and this Fluttermane.
So the Iron Hands, I feel like, is going to be so crucial in this set. We've seen how much this Regieleki and Chiyu can do in all kinds of situations from LAIC, but Iron Hands is one of those Pokemon that does resist decently well most of the options from those two Pokemon, and it has that Fake Out to slow down that side of the field. So maybe there's some chances for Fluttermane, especially with that Focus Sash, to be able to get some good damage off and take advantage of the Chiyu. I think it's the one of the only Pokemon Genting has to be able to make use of the Chiyu and use that Beads of Ruin against Anthony, that the other one being Goldengo.
One of the things that I question about if it's in the back is going to be that Ndidi. Because if you set that Psychic Terrain, then all of a sudden you're not able to actually get that Fake Out down onto either of the Pokemon that are going to be on Anthony's side. And we do see a switch here, and it will be the Ndidi that is going to take that place of that Regieleki. So saving that speed for just a little bit later, and the Psychic Terrain is also going to activate that Psychic Seed.
Just a spectacular switch here. Sort of the temptation is to use Fake Out and Shadow Ball into that Regieleki, and neither of those moves would have worked. But we see John Ting's one step ahead and pivoting out into that Landorus, so having a lot of pressure on this Chi Yu now.
Yeah, so the Intimidate's not going to help with any of that special attack damage, but at the very least, you've kind of limited the type of knockouts that Chiyu could be able to get. We are going to see that terrestrialization, though, so it is a heavy commit here into the offensive output that this Chiyu can provide. It's got the Life Orb, it's got the Terra Fire, and it's also going to be packing something like the Overheat, but that's actually going to... Wait, okay, it's going to be the Heat Wave, but it did miss something.
I think that's the fake out from the Iron Hands didn't work because of that Indeedee switch you called out. So just
I
like a
can't
wonderful
read
way
this
to...
language.
Just guessing based on the turn order, really. But I guess since the Iron Hands didn't do anything else, it must have been the fake out. So just a wonderful switch from that Indeedee. But also a really crucial fact to know that even Terrafire, Life Orb, Beads of Ruin, Overheat from Chiyu still can't take out that Iron Hands. I think that's pretty crucial to adding risk to Anthony's plays in future games. If it's the same sort of lead, if you don't catch the fake out and the Iron Hands goes for anything else, that could be like really heavily punished for that Overheat. And even now, the Chiyu's at -2 special attack, and so there's so much less pressure from Anthony's side of the field.
Yeah, that Overheat, I'm actually kind of wondering if that's a roll, but it doesn't look close enough to actually be in range of getting that knockout. So really nice call out from you to just kind of, hey, let's keep this in mind for the future and how much damage this Chiyu can actually do. An Overheat into any other slot is likely going to be a knockout, but this follow me into the U-turn here is going to take a significant chunk of HP out of that Indeedee and also allow a pivot here from Jian-ting.
A really nice U-turn just to start working on that Indeedee, which can otherwise redirect all of that damage over. We are seeing the Iron Hands come out, so if that's an Overheat into that slot, then the Iron Hands is finally gone, but it cost 4 stages of drop special attack from the Chiyu and 2 turns of Life Orb recoil. So a pretty heavy price to pay to get rid of that Iron Hands.
And something that the team on Anthony's side is not really well known for is positional bulk. Like, you at least have the Indeedee to be able to go for follow me, but there's not really too many safe switches that you could make in front of a team like Jian-ting's that would be able to take these attacks super well.
Yeah, I think positional bulk is a great way to look at this. Like, being able to do things like U-turn out the Landorus so that a low health Pokemon is able to take that second Overheat instead of Landorus needing to take that is just so strong from Jian-ting's side of the field. And now we're in this position where there's really no offense threatened from Anthony's side of the field and very limited plays for him to be able to pivot Pokemon around without taking a pretty hefty price here. That Ogerpon's going to be able to go for an attack into whatever slot it wants and do a lot of damage without really any risk.
Knowing that you could even just have the opportunity to just go for a follow me or something is still a very, very scary prospect. I guess maybe one good thing to note is that Landorus is a flying type, so you could hit it with the priority attack, I guess, if you want to. But we are just going to see Anthony try to keep it safe. It is going to just be the protect, but it's the stomping tantrum into the Chiyu. It did get the knockout onto the Iron Hands, but it just feels like maybe that cost benefit wasn't as great as you might have wanted it to be. This Chiyu is now down for the count.
Yeah, the Chiyu definitely didn't get to do everything it wanted to do. I think getting rid of that Iron Hands might be enough for Anthony to be able to get out of that slot. But I think also what I really want to call out here is Anthony sort of found the one positional play that he still did have available, which is just like protect, let something faint. If you don't have switching position, the ability to switch defensively to regain position, you can always let something go down, and letting the -4 special attack Chiyu go down and bringing in that Flutter Mane is pretty strong as a momentum boost. Like, this Chiyu's really, it took out a Pokemon, it fainted, it brought something else in next to the Indeedee. That's kind of perfect, honestly.
That's a great point. Yeah, you get a free switch in here for the Flutter Mane to be able to come in and just start to try to do some damage. It is going to be holding the Focus Ash as well, so maybe Indeedee doesn't even feel nearly as pressed to go for something like the Follow Me, but in front of both of these Pokemon that are trying to do single target damage, I feel like that is still a very safe bet for this Flutter Mane to just kind of go in and start to hit really hard. The nice thing about the Focus Ash too, because we see a lot of Choice Specs variants, you get to choose whatever you want, whenever you want. So if you feel like the Moonblast or Dazzling Gleam is the play, maybe it's the Shadow Ball the next turn.
Yeah, being able to switch moves is a pretty big deal, especially as the Flutter Mane on the other side of the field enters, because that gives you that Shadow Ball option going forwards to finish it off. We are seeing the Terra Water on this Ogerpon, which is pretty fundamentally challenging for Anthony right now. There's a lot of special attackers on that side of the field, and now this Ogerpon has boosted special defense, and the Beads of Ruin is gone. So Indeedee's going to redirect this attack. Flutter Mane doesn't have to worry yet, But if Ndidi goes down soon, then things are going to be pretty tough for dealing with this Ogre Pawn quickly, at least until that Regieleki hits the field again. But,
Oh,
that's like a
yeah.
1 hit point survival. That's crazy.
That it's almost like it was carrying a focus sash, but not really. Yeah, that's actually a huge survival here for the Indeedee. That Fluttermane was not doing very much damage at all, and that Horn Leech was plenty to be able to get this Ogerpon basically back up to full. So now you have to figure out a way to be able to deal with the Indeedee, but you've got a Fluttermane that's also very fast, that is also carrying a focus sash, so it could lock into Dazzling Gleam, get the knockout there onto the Indeedee, and then all of a sudden you just get a chance to go for like a free Ivy Cudgel into the opposing Flutter.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty crucial fact here of where we really need to find out if these Fluttermanes are speed tying or if one of them is faster or not, because that's really going to affect the interaction of which one can break the focus sash with the other one later. We do see Ndidi leaving the field now, so it's going to be important to remember. And it looks like either it's a speed tie or Anthony's Fluttermane is faster. That's pretty crucial for their planning going forwards.
Yeah, but the Ivy Cudgel here gets a free chance to just go for the knockout there onto the Fluttermane. It looks like that was a critical hit as well. Probably didn't matter. That Ivy Cudgel is going to be doing a ton of damage either way, but this Regieleki coming in, you do have speed in your favor. So the nice thing here is that this Regieleki is going to be able to move first, but is it going to be able to do enough? That's the big question.
So this is a really interesting consequence of Ndidi surviving with that 1 hit point. I think normally Jian-ting would be feeling like he has a very locked up game because you can get the Landorus out next to the Water Ogre Pawn and finish off the Regieleki. And we do see a forfeit probably because that was going to be possible. But I think that Ndidi being able to survive for long enough gives some strange options around redirection and being able to sort of set yourself up to still handle something like the pressure from the Landorus and finish off another Pokemon.
And start looking into game number 2 here of this set. I feel like Jian-ting has a lot of information to walk away with. I love the call out that you made too, in particular about those Fluttermane interactions. I feel like that is very, very important to keep in mind for later on in the game if both of them are in the back.
Absolutely. So we're seeing the Landorus coming out against that Chi-Yu, just sort of getting that pressure immediately, being able to threaten that side of the field. I think that basically both players have grabbed the Pokemon that they switched to and just started with that on their lead. The Landorus and the Ndidi both just hitting the field right away. And I think that's going to have interesting consequences going forwards, as I'm going to need to wait a sec. Okay, so the Ogerpon is there on the field still and able to put a lot of pressure out. I think I really like the choice of the Ogerpon just being present right from the get-go.
Yeah, this was a really nice switch up, I think, too, just because, like, as you called out in that game number 1, not only do you get the special defense and body aspect boost from terastallizing, but you're also just able to hit super, super hard no matter what is across from you. You're also going to be able to take that overheat, I think, relatively well. But as I say that, of course, you could Terra and then Beads of Ruin and then Choice Specs, and it still gets knockouts I feel like a lot of people don't expect.
Yeah, Chi-Yu is just terrifying for exactly that reason. We saw it get through the Iron Hands before. If it gets enough overheats, anything will faint. And so maybe that's the strategy again. We do see Anthony going for the Terra Fire here. Again on that Chi-Yu, so we'll have to see where that overheat lands.
I feel like that's probably what you're gonna try to lean into. I feel like every time I see a Chi-Yu Terrafire, I'm like, like it's just trying to go for the glass cannon approach of just getting the overheat as long as it hits. You're probably feeling really good about yourself. But this embody aspect, Ogerpon, as well as just, of course, getting those stronger Ivy Cudgels could throw a little bit of a wrench into these plants. The Follow Me, though, also another nice way to be able to redirect away any of those attacks away from that Chi-Yu. But it's going to just be the Landorus moving first with the Choice Scarf, getting that U-turn damage down onto that Ndidi.
So same play as before, facing down that Ndidi. Landorus can just always get a little bit of damage off and then make sure it can't get hit by the overheat. That's so crucial because even though this Iron Hands is in danger now, you really need to keep the Landorus safe for those end games with Regieleki, which is the reason I think why Jian-ting won that last game. Oh, as we see, wow, overheat did so much less to that Iron Hands. So it was a roll in the other direction than we were thinking. That seems like a pretty much guaranteed survival here.
Well, that actually looked like it was a heat wave. That looked like spread damage onto the Ogerpon as well. It took a really big chunk though, because I want to say that was a critical hit onto that Iron Hands. No burn on either side, but that I think that was spread damage. That Ogerpon took some damage.
Oh, thank you. Again, and now I'm getting tripped up by the language on this side of the field. Appreciate it. that's pretty crucial because now this Chiyu has the extra special attack still. It hasn't lost that yet, and even if that Heat Wave hadn't crit, you've got that overheat threatening the KO on the Iron Hands. And sure, Iron Hands came in and took the damage instead of the Landorus, but there's no ability to go for Fake Out now, and it feels like Anthony just has a lot of momentum here. You can keep going for Heat Waves. The big challenge is this Ogerpon's now free and clear to take out that Chiyu.
Yeah, and this Ogerpon as well is going to be a Sword Stance set, so it could technically also just kind of go for like a Spiky Shield. It could go for a Sword Stance if it feels like this Chiyu is enough of a threat, maybe, to just like kind of keep the Ogerpon safe, but it's just going to be a Spiky Shield here, at least on Jian-ting's side.
Alright, so Spiky Shield coming out to protect from presumably the Horn Leech on the other side of the field. Make sure you keep that Ogerpon safe, it's so crucial. And we do see that Heat Wave coming out again. No misses, so the Iron Hands is down for the count. That's pretty substantial. It didn't cost the Chiyu nearly as much to be able to take it out. Still those 2 turns of Life Orb recoil, but no special attack drops now. There's the call from the Ogerpon to go for Swords Dance. As a fairly slow set, I believe, if that Chiyu is outspeeding it. Some really interesting information we're getting out of these sets, and a wonderful call with that Swords Dance.
Yeah, we saw this in that very first match as well, that it's a little bit bulkier just as a trade-off for something like the speed so that you can survive long enough to be able to get that Swords Dance. And so I am very curious as to why it is slower than even the Chiyu that's going to be on Anthony's side, but it's going to work out really nicely here. You've got the free Swords Dance, you still have this Chiyu that's just putting on so much pressure, but this Lander is coming in with the Choice Scarf is going to make this a little difficult, I think, for Anthony to get that damage off.
So Chiyu going for Protect, just going to keep itself safe. Landorus in position to take that knockout on Chiyu, but it does just target into Protect, and so if this Ogerpon on Anthony's side of the field is able to finish off the Landorus, it's a pretty big deal. But it actually just outspeeds the Ogerpon and goes for a Horn Leech, finishing that off.
Well, that's a really nice speed interaction there, I guess, for Anthony.
Yeah, that's spectacular. I was thinking that, oh, okay, well, if it's a slow Ogerpon, then that means at least Jian-ting's is faster, and Jian-ting is in this great position to be able to finish this off. But no, this Ogerpon is just like the perfect speed. It just needed to be faster than the other Ogerpon. That's all it needed. And now things are pretty tough for Jian-ting.
It's looking really difficult because you are down to, I think, your final 2 Pokemon in this instance. Now that we've seen the Iron Hands has been dropped. The Wellspring Ogerpon is as well. So it's just going to be these final 2 Pokemon here for Jian-ting to try to take this game number 2. At least you already have a 1-game lead, but it's going to be the Fluttermane switching here for Anthony as this Stomping Tantrum is going to go into that Ogerpon.
Yeah, definitely a good indicator of how desperate the situation is for Jian-ting, that he just sort of had to go for the double target into the Ogerpon, because this Ivy Cudgel here is really just sealing up that game. If there was maybe a double crit, there was a way out of this for Jian-ting, but otherwise, yeah, Anthony just played spectacularly with that Ogerpon adjustment, that now just, like, that Landorus was such a problem last game because it was able to just, like, be immune to anything the Regieleki could use, and now there's just not that pressure anymore as Fluttermane and Ogerpon are finishing off this game and bringing us to game 3.
I was going to say, the Fluttermane might have just been able to do it itself, actually. Just almost got that 1-hit knockout, but yes, it is going to be Anthony able to seal up this game number 2, especially knowing that it was his Fluttermane that ended up moving faster, and I think that just completely confirms it from what we saw in that game number 1 as well. So fantastic stuff here for us to be going to a game 3. We're getting treated already. This is going to be our second game 3 of the day.
I would put down money, honestly, that all of these will go to game 3. They always seem to once we get to a high enough level in the Victory Road tournaments. They're just like, both players have so many deep and interesting and nuanced thoughts about how the matchup plays that it's so hard to win 2 in a row.
I was super happy to see the adjustments there too from Anthony to be able to take us to this game 3.
Absolutely. I think that one of the really cool things about best of 3 sets is that there's some information that you just never really have before a game, like how much exactly will my overheat do to this Iron Hands? And then as soon as a player gets like 1 or 2 really subtle pieces of information, it totally changes how they play the game. It totally changes how things play out. And so I'm curious, now that Jian-ting's gotten a little bit more information from his loss, how this game 3 is going to look as we jump into that.
Yeah, let's find out, shall we? We did see, like, just to go back to the info that you were talking about. It was, yeah, not being able to get that knockout onto the Iron Hands, but also importantly that Anthony's Fluttermane is indeed faster, and so that is just such a nice piece to also be able to play around. Whether you are Anthony or Jian-ting, now you know that you're not going to be able to get that speed interaction at the very end to have that speed control. And we were wondering about that. Where does Jian-ting actually find the speed control for this team, especially when you know that there's a Tornadus on the other side that could appear at any moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Genting's sort of just committed to having the slower Pokemon in a lot of cases, and that makes things really tough against Pokemon like this Chi-Yu that can just do so much damage if you aren't going first. But we see that Genting's gone for the same lead, so I think he must have something up his sleeve here, and I'm very interested to see what that might be, as looks like that Terrestrialization is coming out again on that Chi-Yu. Yep, lots of fire types here.
That doesn't surprise me at all, given what we've seen from the start of our game number 1 and game number 2, but it's about what Anthony decides to lock into here for that very first move. And Jianting's response is just going to be a spiky shield. Doesn't want to take any damage here onto the Ogerpon, and vice versa. Anthony doesn't want any damage coming through onto this Chi-Yu either, so see another U-turn playing out exactly as we saw this game number 2, but it's the pivot and also what could potentially be coming back out in its place that makes this turn even more different.
So it looks like this is the adjustment from Jianting, is bringing the Fluttermane out. It could take an Overheat or a Heat Wave or anything really, and it would be about the same because of that Focus Sash's ability. I think that Heat Wave might even have missed, which would be kind of spectacular. Yes, it did! So this Fluttermane getting in with the Focus Sash intact, that's so huge. So much comeuppance for the critical hit from last time.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to rely on a move missing, whether it's going to be the Overheat or the Heat Wave. They do both have a chance to completely miss their targets. So that is such a big thing here for Jianting to be able to have, and that also leaves you free to go for a Terrestrialization now, knowing that you're in a much safer position.
Yeah, this Ogerpon could not be safer, sitting here with the +1 special defense boost against a fire-type attacker as it's a water-type, and just an Indeedee that's totally in KO range. There's just so much that Jianting's able to do here, and it's really important to see how much he gets out of this turn.
Still wants to keep that Focus Sash intact, though, and also just see if he can bait out any damage. So it is just going to be a protect here from the Fluttermane, as the Indeedee once again goes for a Follow Me, trying to redirect this Ogerpon's attack. This Chi-Yu, though, moving first, is going to be the Heat Wave. It, of course, does not land itself into the Fluttermane, but look at how well that Ogerpon is going to take it, especially now that it is a single Water type.
Being able to go after the Chi-Yu is actually really helpful here, because it means that you're winding up at full health at the end of this turn. It does mean that there's still not immediate pressure on this Chi-Yu going forwards, though. You can't just outspeed and KO it with the Ogerpon Wellspring. And so if Anthony brings out his own Ogerpon again, things might be a little bit difficult. But it looks like it's the Fluttermane this time around, actually, just putting that pressure on the other side of the field, the other Fluttermane.
Okay, so now we get a chance to see this again, where Anthony's Fluttermane gets to move first. You've got the Chi-Yu as well, that is still going to be one of the faster things on the field. And so Ogerpon, on Jianting's side, kind of a sitting duck. Like, it could take a lot of damage here from something like that Fluttermane. Like, yes, that special defense boost is still very helpful, but it is a Fluttermane at the end of the day, and we've seen Fluttermanes do some pretty extraordinary things. So I would be a little worried. Plus, something like the Chi-Yu could also go for something else, like I was going to say even something like a Snarl to just kind of help out here, but it is just going to be some traded chip.
Well, I think that's the Overheat going into the Ogerpon, the most damage that the Chi-Yu can get, even though it's resisted. And that's a KO.
Wow.
That's huge. Being able, you said that this Ogerpon was in danger, and I was thinking, oh, maybe not. It has the special defense boost, but no, you were right. Anthony just finishing off this Ogerpon. That's so crucial for the entire rest of this game. Go ahead.
Yeah, like I'm almost speechless a little bit, because I don't think I would have expected just to see just the double in there for the damage and then just to be able to secure that knockout. It's also such a risky play because Overheat has even worse accuracy than Heat Wave, so you're just not always guaranteed to be able to get that damage down. But Anthony all of a sudden has put himself into such a fantastic position, getting a huge piece off of the board here for Jianting.
That was absolutely what Anthony needed to be able to win. He's going to try to preserve this Chi-Yu going forwards. But I think the big question is, how does he make it through this turn? Because the Landorus has a lot of pressure here. But Tornadus adjustment might be exactly what he needs to be able to get into position.
I think this would be really helpful. If you're able to go for Tailwind, a lot of the I don't know if that I think that would completely negate the Choice Scarf, I wanna say. Trying to think.
Yeah, I think
I know Landorus with Choice Scarf is still really fast, but Tornadus
I'm
hangs
pretty sure
on.
this Chi-Yu is just spectacularly fast, and so I think getting that Tailwind off is enough for it to outspeed every Pokemon on the other side of the field. I think the big question is, this is the only game in this 3-game set where Chi-Yu didn't get a bunch of damage off on Iron Hands really early on in the set. And I think that with Psychic Terrain ending fairly soon, I haven't been counting, but I believe it's in the next couple of turns, um, that suddenly gives Iron Hands a lot of potential to be able to sort of clean up this game. Chi-Yu can't knock it out right away, and there's not a lot of hit points on the rest of Anthony's side of the field. So even if this Tailwind goes up, that's perfect offensively for Chi-Yu, but there's still a lot of defensive tenacity on Jian-ting's side of the field.
Yeah, that's very true. I looking specifically at this Fluttermane can pick up any KOs, and Dazzling Gleam is just not going to be able to do enough here. So we do end up seeing I think was that the Rock Slide that
I
missed?
think that was a Rock Slide double miss.
I was gonna say, like, what in the world? That could have been a double knockout here, but it just wasn't because that was gonna be a double Rock Slide miss.
Yeah, that's actually huge. I think if it was a double knockout, then Jian-ting is very comfortable to have the Iron Hands finish off the Chi-Yu in the end of the game. I think now with the Fluttermane around still, to go for a Moonblast with Beads of Ruin, if this Chi-Yu does outspeed the Choice Scarf Landorus and hit both Heat Waves to knock out both of these Pokemon, then I'm not sure what Jian-ting can do to win this game, because that Moonblast with Beads of Ruin is just so much damage onto the Iron Hands, and there's no Terrestrialization to get out of the Fairy weakness.
Yeah, and it's even better because there's also no Psychic Terrain. So Jian-ting would have loved to be able to have his Iron Hands out in this position to even go for a fake out. Like, just being able to stop just the Chi-Yu would have been so impactful here. But it all really comes down to this turn, I feel like. It's going to be a Protect here from the Fluttermane on Jian-ting's side. Does not want to get knocked out here. Hopefully to be able to survive long enough to be able to get something like that fake out from the Iron Hands. But the Dazzling Gleam, look at the Beads of Ruin. That helping out to be able to just get the knockout right away onto the Landorus. And so it does open up the door here for the Iron Hands to come in next to the Fluttermane. But what do you knock out? This Fluttermane is still going to be able to probably get the knockout here onto the opposing Fluttermane.
Yeah, especially with the Tailwind, so that we don't even have to worry that it was somehow still a speed tie with those two Fluttermanes.
Yeah.
There's just a really clear Shadow Ball into the Fluttermane play, and then Chi-Yu might get hit by Fake Out, but that doesn't really change the way this game plays out. I suppose it's possible that the Fluttermane lands a double Protect and then wins a speed tie, but things are looking pretty dire for Jian-ting's side of the field.
Well, you spoke it into existence. It is going to be the double Protect here coming through from Jian-ting's Fluttermane, which means it is going to be able to keep itself safe for even one more turn. We saw this Iron Hands try to lock into an attack just to make sure that it can get a knockout onto the Fluttermane here. It is going to be the Wild Charge, or the Volt Switch, excuse me. So that is going to get at least one knockout, big key piece out of the way.
Yeah, that is huge. I think also whichever fire move that Chi-Yu went for, I believe missed on the Iron Hands. And so there's no longer a chance to try to clean things off with Heat Wave anymore. The Overheat's gonna go out. Oh no, the Heat Wave, if it lands a burn on the Iron Hands, that changes this set, but otherwise this Iron Hands is gonna be able to Drain Punch back up to full health, and that might just be the game. Jian-ting, I don't think it got burned. That's Drain Punch.
Nope.
Wow.
That is Drain
okay.
Punch, and that is it. No way. Those last few turns were so explosive from both of our players. It felt like it was such a back and forth between who could even take this game and this set. But in the end, it is going to be Jian-ting Liu that is going to win the series 2-1 and get a win on the board here coming through from Taiwan.